David Beckham is one of the world's most famous footballers. As part of Manchester United's 90s golden generation, he became an idol to football fans worldwide and a pop culture icon as half of one of the world's most photographed couples. David captained the England national football team and became the first English footballer to win league titles in 4 different countries. He's also achieved great success off the pitch, inspiring movies, working with global brands and businesses, and even founding his own. David has long been committed to humanitarian work, supporting children's charities and projects around the world, for which he received a Crystal Award at the World Economic Forum in January this year. After receiving the award, David joined me on stage at the CNBC Sanctuary.
Last night was incredible. This is my first time at Davos, and to be awarded the Crystal Award for something that I love doing, and I've loved doing for a long time. But the most important thing about the award, yes, I'm really pleased that I received it, but again, it shines a light on the situations that children are facing around the world. So that's the important part of receiving an award like that it does shine a light again on what children are facing around the world.
David, you're 2 decades now at UNICEF as a Goodwill Ambassador, and you also launched your own 7 Fund with them 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What initiatives are you most proud of so far? And what kind of work have you been seeing with UNICEF?
There's not one moment or one child that I can pick out and say that was my favourite moment, because there's so many favourite moments. When you work with an organisation like UNICEF, there's so many situations that you get put in and that you're in that is inspiring, heartbreaking. But more importantly for me, to meet these children and to be inspired by them. And I always say that when I meet these kids, whether it's in Sierra Leone, Nepal, different places in China, I recently went to India, whatever situation they're in, they have the same smiles as our children do. And that's heartwarming, and it gives you a lot of confidence that everything is going in the right direction. That's the thing that I love being part of this organisation. My first involvement with UNICEF was when I was 17 years old. I was in Thailand on tour with Manchester United, and we were asked to go to a women's centre, and I went along, and I knew right that moment, I knew this is the organisation that I want to be part of for a long time. Then I got the phone call in 2005 from Kofi Annan inviting me to be Goodwill Ambassador. So it's been 20 years of being an ambassador of this organisation. And then 10 years ago, like you said, we started the 7 Fund, which was a separate thing where we focused on different initiatives in different places. And we focused on that for 3 years. But whilst I was doing that over those 3 or 4 years, the one thing I always noticed that girls were being affected and were treated differently. Yeah. And I wanted to be the part of empowering these young girls, these teenagers that are so inspirational, and they just needed to be given the opportunity. They need to be treated the same. So that's my focus for this year. It's been my focus for the last 2 years. We cannot continue to have young teenage girls being forced into early marriage, you know, for a number of, for the obvious reasons. And then you've got education. They are being forced into these early marriages, then they miss out on education. They're not treated the same with healthcare, and it's so important. And that's what our focus is.
Where did this passion to make a difference and give back come from? What values did your parents instill in you?
I think they instilled in me the right values. It's the simple values of treating everyone the same and showing respect to people. And I tried to do the same with my children. All of my kids have said pleases and thank yous from 2-3 years old. So it's the simple values that me and Victoria grew up with that we've tried to instill into our children. And obviously our children have a different upbringing to what we had. So there's complications that come with that. Yeah. But I think my parents instilled that into me. And then when I moved up to Manchester to play for Manchester United, I had a manager, Sir Alex Ferguson. He was the leader of the team. He set the right values for us as players and as a team. And that was important.
Can I just ask you a little bit about Manchester United and your extraordinary career there? What do you think set you apart? What was it in you?
I'm not sure it was me, it was us as a team. I wouldn't have been as successful as I was without my team. And I take that throughout my whole career, and I take it into my business life as well, and also with my family. It's all about my team for me. And the reason I've been successful is because of the teams that I've been part of. And I was lucky to play for great teams with great managers and great players. To have played for the teams that I've played for, Manchester United, my boyhood team, but then to go on to represent my country, you know, things like that make me very proud.
Do you ever miss playing competitively?
Every day. Every day. You know, I turned 50 in May, and I still miss playing every single day. And, you know, you hear, you know, past players turn around and say, I miss the banter in the changing room and on the training field. I miss performing. I miss walking out onto Old Trafford or the Bernabeu or all the stadiums that I played in. I miss it every single day. And it was a hard adjustment. But I knew early on that I wanted to have a career outside of my career after I finished playing. So I did have other focuses, but my main focus for the time that I played the game professionally was always winning.
Hanging up his boots in 2013 did nothing to diminish David Beckham's star power. As an investor and entrepreneur, he's launched his own brands, and he's a founder and co-owner of US Major League Soccer club Inter Miami.
I had the opportunity when I first moved to LA to put in my contract that at the end of that time I would own a franchise and I could decide what city I wanted it in. And I knew exactly at that moment I wanted it to be in Miami. And I also wanted to give back to the game in that way. I wanted to be part of growing the game in America. I saw the challenges, I knew the opportunities, and I knew that we could grow it to a certain level. And it's now grown to a level where we're all very proud of where it is. I'm very proud of the team that I own that has the greatest player to ever play the game in it. So that's a nice thing.
Would you like to name him? Shall I? Lionel Messi?
I'll let you.
Lionel Messi. I mean, what impact did that have when you first came?
We worked really hard to bring someone so great and so big to our club. And we worked on it for a long time. I sneaked into his father's hotel for a meeting 5 years before. And I just said, I know now's not the right time, but when your son's ready, I want him to come to Miami. So over that time, we started to work on him. And then we saw an opportunity. Then we had to put together the deal that Leo would be happy with and that would bring him to Miami. And then I was in Japan one night and I had jet lag and my phone kept on dinging and my wife elbowed me and said, please turn your phone off. I went to turn it off and I looked at it and I saw this update of 40 messages come up on my phone. Leo had announced that he's coming to Miami. I burst into tears because I knew what it meant for us.
What are the responsibilities, the pressure of owning a club?
It's probably been my biggest challenge in my career as a player and also in my career as a businessman. But it's been the most rewarding one. The first few years were very difficult. It was very difficult to get things up and running. And then once we got up and running, we had COVID. And then obviously we went quiet for a year. And then once we came back, then we started to build the club. But, you know, last season, we were very close to obviously going all of the way. And it was a little bit of a disappointing end to the season. We got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. But I had to then take a step back to remind myself, we're only a club that has been going for a few years. And what we've achieved in those few years and the players that we've got and the fan base that we've got and the spotlight that we have on our team in Miami is quite exceptional. But I want to win. I want to win. So that's the responsibilities that we have.
Well, in 2022, you announced a strategic partnership with Authentic Brands Group in the USA to co-own and to manage your global brand. How did that deal come about and what's the vision for that?
Well, that came about after a long time of knowing Jamie Salter, who built Authentic Brands 15 years ago. I met Jamie 10 years ago and we started talking about them taking part of my brand. And at that point, I didn't think the brand was strong enough. I wanted to build it. And then once I built it, then I had to make the decision, was I okay to give part of it away? And I was okay to give part of it away, but to the right people. And Jamie, for me, has the same values as I do with family and with business. And I knew that one day that we would be in a partnership.
2023 Netflix documentary series Beckham shared a personal account of David's life and career, as well as the dark side of fame. The series received praise from critics and the public, winning an Emmy for Outstanding Documentary or Non-Fiction Series.
You've also got Studio 99, which produced the recent Emmy Award-winning, congratulations, Netflix Beckham documentary series. What's it like now to look back at it? Because you did say it was difficult to make. Did it change people's perceptions of you?
Yeah, you know, the production company was something that I always wanted to make, but I needed to find the right team. And I found the right team. I found the right leader in Nicola Howson that I wanted to lead the studio. And then it was about what shows we wanted to produce and what we wanted to bring into the studio. And for a long time, people wanted me to do the life documentary, and I wasn't ready. When I retired 13 years ago, I wasn't ready to look back on my career. But then after about 8 years and heading towards the 10-year anniversary of my retirement, I thought maybe now's the right time to start this conversation. It wasn't an easy one because I'm not very good at opening up. The things that I've been through in the past, I've kind of put in a box, locked it up, and thought I'm never going to have to talk about it again. And I was happy with that. But I didn't realize how important it was for me to actually talk about this stuff. So we needed to find the right director, and we did with Fisher Stevens. Then we needed to find the right partner with Netflix. I said to the team, I'm only going to do this once, and I'm going to do it in the right way. So I opened up and talked about things that I'd never spoke about before, like, you know, injuries and worries and things that went on throughout my career, you know, the sending off and how that made me feel. So it was very difficult. But the one thing Fisher brought out in me is he made me feel uncomfortable every single time that I sat down. And I needed that because I needed him to bring out in me stuff that I've never talked about before.
When you talk about the sending off and the reaction to it, when you look back, what kind of mental resilience?
Well, I'm really glad social media wasn't around back then because it was bad enough then. It was bad enough what people were saying to me, and it was probably almost worse then because people were physically saying it to my face rather than saying it online, even though it was across all media. It was challenging, and when I look back at some of the footage, some of the archive stuff I'd never seen before, and it was hard to watch, and I get emotional talking about it, but
you talked about social media there. You've got a huge following. What kind of responsibility is that for you when you are actually posting?
I mean, every post has to have a real thought through it. And I do all of my posts because I think all of the people that follow me, my fans over the years, know exactly when it's me and when it's not. But with a social media following like that, there's a huge responsibility with that. And there's bad parts of social media and there's good parts of social media. What we try to do with my following and my social media platform is use it for good. I handed my Instagram over to a number of people, actually, a nurse in Kharkiv, it was just when the conflict started and we wanted to highlight this incredible work that the perinatal nurse was doing. And then I handed my Instagram over to a young girl I think it was in Nepal, and she took over my Instagram for the day. So using it for the right reasons and for great causes is important to us.
It also can be used for the wrong reasons. There's online hate, there's negativity, David. What advice do you give your children to navigate?
It's really difficult because all of my children go through it. Well, my daughter doesn't, because she doesn't have any social media platforms. And we're going to keep it like that for a while. But for my boys, they all go through it. You know, they all have people send them messages, and they all sit down with me and Victoria and say, how do we deal with this, Dad? And as much as you turn around to them and say, don't read it, we all read it. That's the problem. We were all attracted to it, and there's too much bullying that goes on. And it's not just with children, it's with adults. And unfortunately, we live in a culture where bullying seems to be accepted. So I think that social media platforms have a real responsibility to protect people from that.
How do you deal with the public scrutiny, both you, Victoria, and your children? Because everybody knows who you are. Everybody wants to know what you're doing.
I think you just get on with it. I was brought up in an era where if I turned around to my dad and said, Dad, I feel a bit sad today, or I don't feel a bit anxious, my dad just says, go and get on with it. And that's really how I grew up. So that's really been my mentality. So to deal with, obviously, the situations that we've had over the years, I had no training. I didn't know how to deal with, a lot of the things that happened within my career and outside of my career. But luckily, I had good people around me, good family, and people that stuck by me. And that's what we all want and all need. But the scrutiny, we went through a period where people weren't so nice, after the World Cup. But then 99% of the time, people are amazing. So it's pretty easy.
Just finally, David Beckham, football legend, club owner, beekeeper, business leader, founder, philanthropist, humanitarian. Any room for anything else?
One of the things that actually happened recently is our king made me ambassador of his foundation. Now, if anyone knows me and knows our family, we are big royalists and we love our monarchy. And I've always done things for the Prince of Wales. Whenever I get a message or a phone call, I'll always say yes. And our king, he's not just been doing these incredible things for the last 10 years, he's been doing them for decades. So for me to now be able to shine a light on the incredible work that he does, and it's all about empowering young people and bringing, lost arts back into the world. And I'm very proud of that.
David Beckham, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
David Beckham.